Hey everyone, once again, this is Mike from the Terra Battle Wikia, and seeing as we just took a look at floor traps and hazards, we're going to take a look at support class characters, specifically. We did a previous video about sort of the different classes and the different abilities and how to add job and everything, but we figured it'd be a good idea to sort of hone in on support classes since they're so kind of unique and unusual that I think a lot of people sort of overlook them or are a little confused by them. So we're going to take a look at some of the ones we have in our party here and just sort of like break them down to give you an idea of like what they're used for. First one we'll look at here is a Zafit. So, you know, as we mentioned before, we can tell Zafit is a support class because we'll go back real quick. And when you look at her profile icon, you see a little green dot at the bottom right. And that generally means that this is a support class character. So Zafit, as you can see, she has 4 kind of weird abilities. They're not really like the other ones. The other abilities are generally attack based or they'll like hit groups of enemies, but she has 4 different ones. She has a disarm bomb, immediately unlocked, so as soon as you get her she'll have that one. What does it do? Disarm bomb in the area you've traveled. So what this does is that we talked about bombs earlier and how enemies drop them behind them as they move around. Disarm bomb actually allows her specifically to move through those bombs and basically just get rid of all of them. Like, you can take her and swipe her through a field of bombs and they'll all be removed and she won't take any damage. So it's an interesting idea for you to deal with, you know, maps where there's a lot of bombs or a lot of characters dragging bombs behind them. It allows her to sort of position herself and get around and move other units safely. It's interesting though, because seeing as she is a support class character, she's not going to do a lot of damage, so I think the optimal use for that ability would be using her to move other units into position as she goes through the bombs and basically clears everything out for them so they won't take damage as you scoot them around. This next ability here, Levitation, this is unlocked at level 15, and for 3 turns it basically makes your entire team immune to floor traps. So that includes bombs, spikes, and the ooze or the slime. When your characters are floating, they'll have a special effect on them where you'll sort of see their like little tile like levitating. And lets you know that they have levitation on them and that they can move freely over these floor traps without taking any damage. So that's very useful for maps that are cluttered with either a lot of spike traps, a lot of ooze traps, or a lot of bomb users. Her third one here, Build Bomb, is really cool. This actually allows her to drag a bomb behind her like the enemies do, which means that when enemies move through it on their turn, they're going to take damage. You really don't find anything that allows you to do damage to the enemy on their turn, so this is a pretty unique, pretty cool ability. Her last ability here, boosts skill frequency by 20%. That's super good. For 2 turns, that'll allow, we see up here this B 0.0%. That's the bonus that we have to, you know, a skill occurring. We'll take a quick look at somebody with a more traditional one here. But yeah, Zenzo's Shadow Strike has an 80% chance of occurring when he's, you know, participating in a pincer attack. So if that 80% gets boosted by Zafit's plus 20% here, that means there's going to be a 100% chance that Shadow Strike is going to happen in addition to his pincer attack every time. So that's a really cool buff, and that can, I imagine that'll do a lot of damage, especially with casters and stuff when you're looking for extra AoE strikes. That's pretty great. And you can see as a chain, that means it's going to work the same way as your healers generally work, where anything in a straight line with her when she's involved in an attack is going to get that boost. Again, it only has a 30% chance to occur, but again, that's a pretty strong ability. So we'll move on to another support character real quick. Each one has kind of a different flavor. They all don't do the same thing. They all have some sort of weird specialty or weird, you know, status effect thing. And I think that's pretty evident here in Eileen. Eileen is the songstress, is her character idea, but we can see her abilities here are very different. She has a Lullaby, which is an area attack, and it lulls foes to sleep. So anytime she's involved in an attack, she's going to have an area of effect attack that has a chance to put the enemies to sleep. When the enemies are asleep, they can't move, they can't attack, they're totally useless. So it gives you a pretty big advantage to get in there, get around them, and get your hits in. Rise and Shine is actually sort of the opposite of Lullaby, because you're going to get into encounters later in the game where you'll fight units that put your units to sleep. And when your units are asleep, that is, you know, no good for you, because even if you line somebody up with them when they're asleep for a pincer attack, they won't attack. So they're basically dead units until they wake up again. And that's what Rise and Shine does. It has a 100% chance to occur, so every time she's involved in a fight, she'll wake everybody up that's asleep. So if you're having trouble with characters using sleep a lot, she seems like the perfect character. Sleep Ward, she gets at level 35, and that makes people immune to sleep. So you don't even need Rise and Shine at that point, because everyone will just completely resist the sleep effect. And regen means that she's going to be gradually regaining health every turn, so that's useful for her as well. Again, we can take a look at her stats and see that she has fairly low attack on both sides of things, but you know, I would say support classes are on par, but generally do a little more damage than healing classes. They can't be really relied upon to do a lot of damage, I think, especially in the case of Eileen, who doesn't seem to have any kind of, you know, offensive attacks really, as opposed to Zafit, who, you know, can have drag a bomb behind her, which is pretty useful. Kana here is another support class, the Apothecary. So she has Locomotion. Locomotion will cure your allies of paralysis, and that happens every time she attacks, and it will affect everyone on the board. So it basically ensures that you guys will never, your units will never get paralyzed. Her next ability here, Paralyze, obviously, it will paralyze targets. So that's at level 15. It has an area 2, which tells you the size of the attack. So when she's involved in the pincer attack, it'll be a sort of 2 squares around her. Clarity here, this will cure allies of confusion. So confusion is, you know, another status effect that you're going to be encountering later in the game. I know for a lot of new players, support characters seem odd or weird because you don't ever see these status effects really early in the game. But yeah, as you get closer towards the end of the game, you're going to be encountering these a lot more often. And Restorative Counter is, it's basically like a reverse counter attack in that when Zafit takes damage, she's just going to immediately heal herself. So it's going to make her very hard to kill. Most support classes are actually pretty difficult to kill, especially at these later levels, because they all have abilities that generally either automatically re-heal them or bring them back to snuff. Last one we have here is Razanad. Razanand? Yeah. And he has sort of, you know, a mix of the ones we've seen before here. He has Clarity, which cures allies of confusion. Confuse in an area 2 squares around him, so that'll do, you know, a confused target will just move around randomly. Rise and Shine, which I believe Eileen had, same thing, and then Restorative Counter, which we just saw as well. So basically, yeah, depending on what support characters you have unlocked, you can, you know, sort of pick and pull, match them together. And to be honest, I would say that given the sort of, I don't know, esoteric nature of a lot of the support classes, these are guys that are probably worth adding job to, seeing that add job lets you pick and choose abilities that you like and add them into the extra slots that you have. Yeah, we can see down here like this empty slot where we can sort of put an additional thing. But yeah, support classes are, you know, very interesting. They don't really play like any other class. Again, they're not big damage dealers, but they provide a lot of utility in situations that might be a little harder to overcome unless you have, you know, the buffs you need to do it. But yeah, hopefully that'll give you a little insight on how to use support characters. Like I said, play around, figure out what you like. If you're having a hard time on the later levels with a lot of floor traps or a lot of status effects, these are the guys you're going to want to come in and bail you out. So, you know, grind them through the metal zone, get them leveled up so you can use all their abilities, and they can be a big asset to your party. Alright guys, thanks a lot for listening. Please make sure to check out the Terra Battle Wikia at terrabattle.wikia.com. All the latest information and news is there, what new, you know, updates and features they're going to add to the game, you'll find there. Yeah, jump in the forums, do some edits, check it out. Thanks a lot. Bye.